Hello and welcome to Film Teach, Self-Education Through Films. If you're interested to know how films can be used to improve our understanding of everyday concepts and phenomena in a useful way, this audio series is for you. My name is Disha, and I study one film at a time to distill from it practical and useful insights. For my second audio essay, I'd like to share another lesson I learned from the film Jurassic Park. For my first essay, I studied this classic film to understand the relationship between man and machine. I have shared the link in the description box for anyone who might be interested in the subject. With that out of the way, let's get started with today's essay. How would a paleontologist, a paleobotanist, a chaotician, and a geneticist respond to the idea of bringing dinosaurs back to life? That's probably not the question the author of the Jurassic Park series, Mr. Michael Crichton, asked himself when he wrote the books. Going on a limb here, but I don't think it's what the film's director, Mr. Steven Spielberg, thought either when he decided to adapt the book into a film. Yet, once you remove the animatronic dinosaurs, all that remains is what Dr. Grant, the paleontologist, Dr. Sattler, the paleobotanist, Ian Malcolm, the chaotician, and Dr. Wu, the geneticist, bring to the table as their response to a larger-than-life idea. The dinosaurs then become the magnet towards which the knowledge and perception of the three scientists and the one mathematician get drawn. Like science, mathematics too is a way of knowing, and as represented in the film, a way of looking as well. Therefore, I felt that the four characters that represent these tools of knowledge can help us understand how what we know influences the way we perceive things and eventually determines our actions. My leading question was simple. Can Jurassic Park help us understand how knowledge influences perception? The answers I found were enlightening for me, and I hope you find them useful too. Starting with Dr. Grant, I wondered how his knowledge had shaped his perception. And to understand it best, I decided to focus on Dr. Grant's presence at the Montana dig site and also during the cloning clip scene, the exquisite lunch scene, and when he was out in the wild. Dr. Alan Grant is a paleontologist. From a rigid skeptic to a willing explorer, his character evolves as the film evolves. And the duration of that course, he reveals a lot about how his knowledge influenced his worldview. For instance, in Montana, he educates a kid about why one shouldn't take nature lightly, that in our ignorance of what nature can be capable of, we only stand to lose. Needless to say, his knowledge and his understanding of that knowledge helped him develop a deep respect for the power of nature. Dr. Grant possesses a quick thinking and questioning mind, and is the first to raise a doubt when they watch the film on cloning. He wonders, cloned from what? To me, his question displayed his intuitive grasp on his field and his need to understand the how of things. In the lunch scene, Dr. Grant shows yet another interesting side of how he looks at science and how his knowledge, in turn, makes him look at life. For instance, science taught him to observe a thing instead of making quick conclusions about it. He's well aware of the unnatural element present in Hammond's venture, but makes no claim to know what it may mean. To me, his doubt meant that he did not completely favor or oppose either Hammond's untended optimism or Ian Malcolm's extreme pessimism. He was yet to make up his own mind. In other words, his knowledge had taught him to keep assumptions at bay. And perhaps it is this attitude that helps him think on his feet and stand on it too, as he helps himself and two children find their way out of danger. And although he keeps from passing any quick judgment during the lunch scene, he does pick a side when he sees the broken dinosaur eggshells. Clearly, his knowledge helped him draw conclusions only in the presence of undeniable evidence. In short, Dr. Grant's knowledge helped him 1. Develop deep and resounding respect for nature. 2. Focus on the how of things. 3. Keep assumptions at bay. And 4. Draw conclusions only in the presence of undeniable evidence. Now let's go to Dr. Sattler and try to see how her knowledge shaped her perception. Again, to understand it well, I focused on her presence in the cloning clip scene, the lunch scene, and of course, the eye-opening exchange between her and John Hammond that I like to call the flea circus scene. Dr. Ellie Sattler is a paleobotanist. She shares Dr. Grant's enthusiasm for science, but not his rigidity. Her knowledge, it seemed to me, provided her with a wider sense of responsibility. Although a paleobotanist worth her salt, she has a nurturing side that keeps her from overlooking her role as a child-bearer in the cycle of evolution. After Dr. Grant's insightful inquiry into the how of cloning theory, she questions the where, when she wonders where one would find 100-million-year-old dinosaur blood. And just like Dr. Grant, she displayed her intuitive grasp on a field as well. In the lunch scene, she shares her logical doubts based on her observations of the poisonous plants in the park. Their presence had made her question the depth and knowledge of Hammond's scientists and doubt their ability to control what they had created. She questions the basis of their assumptions and suppositions by making an articulate assessment of what she sees as the problem. In the same scene, she also shows that despite her love for her field and the thrill she experienced on seeing living and breathing dinos, she is able to look behind the magnificent curtain, so to speak, by being able to think objectively about the whole enterprise. This made me feel that science had trained her to stay on the ground and survey a situation even when the odds might seem mightily against it. It's clear that Dr. Sattler's view of the world had given her a well-balanced character, but it wasn't without its share of flaws. And whether coincidence or not, it's her acceptance of her lack of humility during the flea circus scene that made Hammond think of his own. Science, rather its values, as expressed via Dr. Sattler's character, made me think that perhaps consistent improvement, not unyielding perfection, is the real goal of knowledge. Dr. Sattler made me think of knowledge as a balancing act between chaos and order, a place that, according to Canadian professor of psychology, Mr. Jordan Peterson, is where individuals must strive to be. In short, Dr. Sattler's knowledge helped her 1. Focus on the where of things. 2. Assess a problem articulately. 3. Think objectively despite all odds. 4. Believe in consistent improvement, not unyielding perfection. And 5. Strike a balance between chaos and order. Time to move over to the film's chaotician, Ian Malcolm. It was really interesting to see how Ian's knowledge shaped his perception. Here again, to understand it well, I focused on Ian Malcolm's presence in the lab tour scene and, of course, in the lunch scene, where I believe his genius shines through and through. In the beginning of the film, Ian Malcolm was as rigid a character as Dr. Grant. But unlike Dr. Grant, he didn't evolve from it, probably because his fears came true. He's far more doubtful than Dr. Grant and Dr. Ellie, and seems to see life only as a manifestation of different degrees of chaos. Yet, it is Ian who's able to predict the danger inherent in Hammond's venture in a heartbeat. By this, he didn't specifically mean the possibility of the dinosaurs wreaking havoc as they did, but pointed at something that simmered underneath the venture's well-polished patina. For him, the real problem that could become the mother of all other problems was the lack of humility displayed towards nature by Hammond and his team of scientists. He was shocked to see how his discovery and his means to harness it had made Hammond overestimate the degree of control he had in what he was attempting to do. As a chaotician, Ian saw chaos inherent in the very fabric of life. For him, the least one could do is acknowledge that things can and often do go wrong, especially when one attempts to tickle nature merely out of one's capability. Nature might not have a funny bone, but for Ian, it always has the last laugh. Where Hammond, his team, and even the timid lawyer, Gennaro, sees unprecedented success in what Hammond accomplished, Ian is quick to pull up Hammond's philosophy skirt, so to speak, in order to reveal what's hiding underneath it. For him, John wasn't a visionary, but simply a man taking advantage of what others had accomplished before him. As John plays finders keepers with Dino DNA, Ian is able to call out his greed by showing him how far removed he actually is from what he has created, and how that attitude will make him as reckless and irresponsible as a kid who has found his father's gun. He seems to be a border pessimist, as a chaotician, but I also felt that his view of science carried a moral tint as he throws light on the why of Hammond's whole enterprise. I felt he displayed his philosophical genius when he tells Hammond that his scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could bring dinosaurs back to life, that is, that they didn't stop to think if they should. In short, Ian Malcolm's knowledge helped him 1. See what lies beneath the surface. 2. Find the true driving force behind an action. 3. See irresponsibility where others see greatness. And 4. Focus on the why of things. With this, we come to Dr. Henry Wu, Hammond's chief geneticist. Again, to understand it well, I focused on Dr. Wu's presence in the lab tour scene. Dr. Wu, it appears to me, thought of science as a set of rules and guidelines only, and probably believed that as long as one followed them, nothing could go wrong. In his mind, there was no room for doubt, only control. I think it'll be fair to assume that he and his team had spent the longest time with the dinosaurs. Their lab was the place where the dinosaurs were brought to life, after all. Perhaps he had been close to the process for so long that it had ceased to make any impact on him, morally or otherwise. He seemed to have settled into a just doing my job routine. While I was working on this essay, I chanced upon a quote by Mr. Stephen Hawking, which I think can explain how Dr. Wu's approach to knowledge had shaped his worldview. Mr. Hawking once said, "There's no prescribed route to follow to arrive at a new idea. Once you have made the intuitive leap, you have to justify it by filling in the intermediate steps. In my case, it often happens that I have an idea, but then I try to fill in the intermediate steps and find that they don't work. So I have to give it up." And it occurred to me that probably Dr. Wu did overlook some of the intermediate steps that didn't work instead of giving up on the new big idea. In short, Dr. Wu's knowledge made him 1. Incorrectly assess his level of control. 2. See technology as superior to nature. And 3. See nature as tameable and malleable. The journey I underwent with this question helped me understand that our knowledge indeed shapes our way of looking at the world, its problems, and its accomplishments, and can help us contribute to either one of those through our understanding and action. So this is what I found out. What about you? Add your insights in the comments section, and if you found it useful, do share it with your friends, and maybe let me know too. Thank you for being here. See you next time.